For decades, fans have wondered where the final island truly lies, the place where the greatest treasure in the world waits, the island every pirate dreams about. But what if the answer was never hidden, only misunderstood? What if the location of Laugh Tale has actually been sitting in front of us this entire time, quietly hinted at through small details planted by Eiichiro Oda long before the story ever mentioned the final island by name? Because the biggest assumption fans make is that Laugh Tale is a normal island, some fixed point at the end of the map, a place you simply sail to once you collect the clues. But the deeper you look into the world of One Piece, the more that assumption starts to fall apart. Strange ocean currents, islands that appear and disappear. Whirlpools are powerful enough to swallow fleets. What if pirates across the entire world have been chasing something that was never standing still in the first place? And suddenly, one moment in the story begins to look very different. When Roger finally reached Laugh Tale, he didn't celebrate. He didn't claim the treasure with pride. Instead, he laughed. Not a small chuckle, but the kind of laugh that echoed across the entire crew. A reaction so strange that it left the world wondering what he could have possibly seen there. Because whatever waited on that island wasn't just treasure, it was something far bigger. But here's the part most people miss. The clues to that truth may have appeared long before Roger ever reached the final island. Hidden in the very first gateway pirates must cross when entering the Grand Line, a place that quietly holds one of the greatest secrets in the entire world. At first glance, Reverse Mountain seems like nothing more than the dramatic gateway into the Grand Line. Every pirate entering the most dangerous sea in the world has to climb its impossible rivers and descend into the unpredictable currents that define the journey ahead. But the deeper you look, the more this place begins to feel less like a simple geographic feature and more like a carefully placed secret. Reverse Mountain sits exactly where the four oceans meet: North Blue, South Blue, East Blue, and West Blue. It's the only place on the planet where every sea converges into one violent intersection. And when you consider how deliberate the world-building of One Piece is, it becomes difficult to believe that this location exists by coincidence. A mountain that gathers the waters of the entire planet and funnels them into a single path feels more like the center of the world itself. The question is why? Why would the geography of the world be designed this way? And why does the journey toward the ultimate treasure begin at this exact location? The answer may lie in something most viewers overlooked the first time they saw it. When the Straw Hats first reached Reverse Mountain, they didn't just encounter dangerous currents or treacherous waters. They encountered a whale. Not just any whale, but one of the most emotionally memorable creatures in the entire story. Laboon was waiting there, slamming his massive body against the red line for years while waiting for pirates who promised they would return. On the surface, Laboon's story feels like a tragic tale about loyalty and patience. But if you zoom out and examine the broader narrative, something strange starts to emerge. Whales appear again and again throughout the journey across the Grand Line. Entire groups of island whales show up near key points in the New World. Massive creatures capable of traveling enormous distances beneath the sea. and somehow they always seem connected to places that matter. This pattern is too consistent to ignore. In a world where almost every creature has narrative meaning, the repeated appearance of whales near critical locations suggests that they may be part of a much larger system, one tied directly to the secrets of the ocean itself. What makes this even more fascinating is the way whales behave in the story. Island whales, unlike normal sea creatures, aren't just drifting through random waters. They move with purpose. They travel in massive groups, navigating the dangerous currents of the Grand Line as if they understand the ocean better than any ship ever could. Their migrations seem to follow hidden routes beneath the sea, routes shaped by powerful currents and deep underwater flows that most sailors never even notice. And that brings us back to Reverse Mountain. If this location truly sits at the center of the world's oceans, then it would naturally become a focal point for the planet's most powerful water movements. Currents from all four seas collide here before flowing into the Grand Line. Underwater streams surge beneath the Red Line. Temperature differences between hot and cold waters create violent whirlpools and rising plumes that can carry entire ships. It's possible that Reverse Mountain isn't just the start of the pirate journey. It may actually be the control point for the entire oceanic system. And if that's true, then creatures that rely on those currents would instinctively gather here. Creatures like whales. Now imagine this possibility. What if the whales aren't simply passing through these waters, but guiding something through them? Over the course of the series, whales have been portrayed as deeply connected to the world itself. They respond to voices others cannot hear. They seem drawn toward certain locations with almost spiritual awareness. Some even react to individuals who possess rare abilities tied to the sea. In a story filled with ancient weapons, forgotten civilizations, and mysterious forces shaping the world, it's not impossible to imagine that whales play a role far beyond what we've seen so far. Some fans believe the island whales may even interact with the hidden currents that move beneath the Grand Line, currents capable of carrying enormous land masses through the ocean over long periods of time. If an island existed that didn't stay in one place, if there were a hidden land drifting slowly across the world's oceans, it would need something powerful enough to navigate those waters. Something that understands the deep currents better than any human sailor ever could. And suddenly, the presence of whales at Reverse Mountain begins to feel less like a coincidence, and more like the first breadcrumb in a trail leading toward the greatest secret of all. Because if whales are connected to those hidden currents, then they may also be connected to the island every pirate has been chasing for centuries. And that realization leads to a question far stranger than anyone expected. What if the whales appearing throughout the journey aren't just symbolic guardians of the sea, but living clues pointing toward the moving path of the final island itself? As the journey through the Grand Line continues, one strange pattern keeps repeating itself. Whales. Massive island whales appear again and again at important points across the ocean, almost as if they are silently watching the story unfold. At first, they seem like nothing more than incredible sea creatures. Another example of how wild and unpredictable the seas of One Piece can be. But when you begin connecting the locations where they appear, something unusual starts to form. these whales aren't scattered randomly across the world. They tend to show up near places that matter, places connected to the deepest mysteries of the ocean. The most famous example is, of course, Laboon, the giant whale waiting patiently at Reverse Mountain. But Laboon isn't alone. Entire pods of island whales later appear in the New World, moving together through the dangerous waters as if they are following a hidden path beneath the sea. In a world where nearly every detail placed by Eiichiro Oda eventually turns out to have deeper meaning, the repeated appearance of these whales starts to feel less like coincidence and more like deliberate foreshadowing. What makes island whales even more fascinating is their connection to islands themselves. Unlike ordinary sea creatures, island whales are so large that they are often described as living landmasses. Entire ecosystems can form on their backs, and their size alone suggests they have been part of the ocean for an incredibly long time. Some fans have even pointed out that these whales behave almost like moving islands themselves, drifting through the Grand Line's powerful currents while navigating dangerous waters that most ships struggle to survive. That detail becomes incredibly interesting when you consider how unstable the seas of the Grand Line really are. The region is famous for unpredictable magnetic fields, violent storms, and strange ocean currents that can pull ships in unexpected directions. Yet the whales seem completely comfortable navigating these conditions. They move as if they instinctively understand the flow of the sea. If there are hidden currents deep beneath the Grand Line, currents powerful enough to carry massive objects across the planet over centuries, creatures like island whales would likely be the only ones capable of following those paths naturally. This idea leads to one of the most fascinating theories among fans of the series. What if the whales are not simply living in these waters, but guiding something through them? Some theorists believe the island whales might be connected to the mysterious final island itself, Laughtail. The idea sounds strange at first, but the more you examine the clues, the more intriguing it becomes. If Laughtail truly holds the greatest secrets of the world, it would make sense that reaching it requires more than just sailing to a fixed location. What if the island itself moves through the oceans, carried slowly along massive underwater currents that circle the planet? If that were true, creatures that live deep within those currents would naturally appear near the island's path. Island whales could act like silent companions traveling alongside it, following the same ancient streams of water that move beneath the surface of the world. Some even speculate that Laughtail could be hidden within a whale itself, or protected by them as they migrate across the seas. While that may sound extreme, the story has repeatedly shown that the ocean holds far more mysteries than anyone realizes. But even if whales are connected to the movement of islands, there may be something far bigger controlling the process. The Grand Line is filled with powerful environmental phenomena that shape the entire world. Giant underwater eruptions, temperature shifts between hot and cold currents, and colossal streams of water that travel across the globe like invisible highways beneath the surface. These forces are capable of moving enormous masses of water over thousands of miles. If an island were caught within one of these flows, it could slowly drift across the world over centuries without anyone noticing. That possibility changes everything about the way pirates search for the final island. Instead of chasing a destination that stays in one place, they may have been chasing something that constantly shifts with the ocean itself. And if whales truly follow those hidden currents through the Grand Line, their repeated appearance may be more than symbolic. It could be a clue pointing toward a much larger force shaping the movement of the seas. Because the truth is, the island pirates are searching for may not simply drift randomly across the ocean. It may be carried along by something far more ancient and powerful than anyone has ever imagined. If the final island truly moves across the ocean, then something enormous must be carrying it. Islands don't simply drift around the world on their own. There would need to be a force powerful enough to move entire land masses through the sea over centuries without anyone realizing it. And this is where one of the most fascinating theories about the world of One Piece begins to take shape. Some researchers of the story believe there may be a hidden ocean current circling the planet, an ancient stream of water so vast and slow-moving that it takes thousands of years to complete a single loop around the world. This current has been nicknamed the Dragon Stream, a massive underwater river that quietly travels across the planet's oceans. Unlike normal currents that move quickly and unpredictably, this one would flow on a scale far beyond what most sailors ever notice. Imagine a global conveyor belt of water slowly circling the entire world, powerful enough to influence climates, shape ocean routes, and possibly even carry islands with it. What makes this theory even more compelling is how the oceans in the Grand Line behave. The seas in this region are famous for their extreme and often chaotic conditions. Ships encounter violent whirlpools, strange upward blasts of water, and deep plunging currents that seem to defy normal ocean physics. One of the most mysterious examples is the presence of underwater waterfalls, massive columns of water plunging downward into the depths of the sea. These phenomena appear when cold, dense water sinks beneath warmer layers, creating powerful vertical currents that can pull anything nearby into the deep. At the same time, volcanic vents beneath the ocean floor release bursts of heated water that rise rapidly toward the surface. When these hot and cold flows collide, they create unpredictable spirals and whirlpools capable of dragging entire ships into their center. These violent interactions hint at a deeper system moving beneath the surface. A hidden network of water flows constantly circulating through the world's oceans. Now imagine those currents forming part of something much larger, an ancient stream moving slowly around the entire globe over thousands of years. If a current like that existed, it could explain many of the strange oceanic phenomena seen throughout the Grand Line. It could also explain how an island might travel through the world without leaving a predictable trail. Instead of remaining anchored to the sea floor, the island could be carried gently along the stream, drifting across different regions of the planet as the current slowly completes its massive cycle. And that brings us back to the legendary destination every pirate dreams of reaching: Laugh Tale. If Laugh Tale were positioned within this enormous ocean stream, it wouldn't stay in one location long enough for anyone to map it permanently. It would move gradually along the current's path, appearing in different parts of the world across centuries. Only those who understand the timing of the current and the rare conditions when it becomes accessible would have any chance of finding it. This possibility sheds new light on something one man once said after reaching the island itself. When Roger finally arrived at Laugh-Tale with his crew, he didn't claim victory the way most pirates would. Instead, he laughed. But shortly after that moment, he also made a statement that puzzled everyone who heard it. Roger believed he had arrived too early. At first, this seemed strange. After all, how could anyone reach an island at the wrong time? But if Laugh-Tale truly moves along a massive current that takes thousands of years to circle the globe, timing would become the most important factor in reaching it. Even if someone knew the island's path, they would still have to arrive during the exact moment when the current aligned with the conditions needed to access it. Roger may have discovered the island before the world itself was ready for what it contained. And if the Dragon Stream theory is correct, that means Laugh-Tale isn't just hidden somewhere on the map. It's traveling across the planet right now, quietly moving through the ocean on a journey that began centuries before the Great Pirate Era ever started. Which raises a chilling possibility. The island may only reveal itself when the current completes a specific point in its cycle, a moment that Roger believed would arrive long after his time had passed. If the final island truly moves along an ancient ocean current, then reaching it would depend on more than just knowing where it is. Timing would become everything. The sea itself would control when the island could be found, meaning pirates across the world might be searching for a destination that only becomes reachable during extremely rare moments in history. This is where another fascinating idea begins to appear in the lore of One Piece. The possibility that the final island, Laugh-Tale, can only be accessed during a repeating historical cycle. Not every decade, not every century, but once every 800 years. If that theory is correct, it would mean the entire pirate era is unknowingly racing toward a moment that only appears a few times in the span of recorded history. The number itself is impossible to ignore. 800 years ago marks one of the most mysterious periods in the entire story, the era known as the Void Century. This was the time when an incredibly powerful civilization existed, only to be erased from history by the forces that would eventually become the world government. Almost everything about that century was deliberately wiped away. Books were destroyed, knowledge was forbidden, and even the act of studying that period became a crime punishable by death. The only surviving fragments of that lost era exist in the form of ancient stone texts scattered across the world. But if the theory about Laugh-Tale's cycle is true, then the Void Century may not just be the story of a fallen civilization. It may also mark the last time the final island became accessible to the world. That would mean the secrets hidden there were never meant to be discovered again, at least not until the next cycle arrived. And that brings us directly to one of the most important figures connected to that ancient era, Joy Boy. His name appears across multiple historical clues scattered throughout the Grand Line. He left messages on poneglyphs, made promises that were never fulfilled, and seems to have played a central role in whatever happened during the Void Century. Yet despite how important he was, almost nothing about Joy Boy is clearly explained. The story treats him less like a normal historical figure and more like a legend whose actions shaped the future long after he disappeared. If Laugh-Tale truly contains the final truth about the world, then it's very possible that Joy Boy himself placed something there. something meant to remain hidden until the right moment in history. That moment may be tied directly to the 800-year cycle. In other words, the island may only reveal its true purpose when the world once again reaches the same historical alignment that existed during Joy Boy's time. Suddenly, one of the strangest statements ever made by the Pirate King starts to make sense. When Roger and his crew reached Laughtail, they discovered the truth of the world, but Roger still believed he had arrived too soon. He laughed when he saw what Joy Boy left behind, yet he also realized that whatever plan Joy Boy set into motion wasn't meant for his generation to complete. If the island truly operates on an 800-year cycle, Roger may have reached it during the quiet period between two historical turning points. The knowledge was there, waiting to be discovered, but the conditions needed to fulfill its purpose hadn't arrived yet. That realization would mean Roger didn't just start the great pirate era for adventure or fame. He did it to buy time. Time for the world to move closer to the next cycle. Time for the right people to appear. And time for someone else to finally finish what Joy Boy began. But understanding that cycle only leads to an even deeper mystery. Because if the world has been waiting 8 centuries for the next turning point, then something incredibly important must happen when that moment finally arrives. And that realization leads directly into the next secret hidden within the ancient prophecy of the seas. When Roger and his crew finally reached Laughtail, they accomplished something no pirate in recorded history had ever done. They discovered the island at the end of the Grand Line and uncovered the truth that had been hidden from the world for centuries. Yet what happened next is one of the most puzzling moments in the entire story. Roger didn't conquer the world. He didn't expose the secrets he found. Instead, he laughed and then walked away. For the man known as the Pirate King, someone powerful enough to shake the entire world, that decision seems almost impossible to understand. If Roger truly learned the lost history of the Void Century and the meaning behind the ancient kingdom, why didn't he act on it? Why didn't he try to bring down the world government or reveal the truth to the world? The answer may lie in a simple but devastating realization Roger reached on that island. The world wasn't ready yet. The clues to this realization appear in several moments throughout the story. Roger himself admitted that he had arrived too early. At first, those words sound strange. After all, how can someone reach a place at the wrong time if the destination is already there? But if Laughtail is tied to a larger cycle in history, one that repeats every 800 years, then Roger's discovery becomes far more complicated. It means he may have found the truth before the world had reached the moment when that truth could actually change anything. The ancient kingdom that existed during the Void Century had its own plans, its own dreams for the future of the world. Those plans may have required specific people to appear at a certain point in history. Roger might have uncovered the entire story, but without the right conditions in place, acting on that knowledge could have been meaningless, or even disastrous. Instead of forcing the future before it was ready, Roger chose a different path. He sparked the Great Pirate Era, sending thousands of pirates into the sea in search of the One Piece. On the surface, it looked like a chaotic explosion of ambition. But beneath that chaos, Roger may have been guiding the world toward the moment when everything would finally align. Part of that alignment appears to revolve around an ancient prophecy whispered by creatures who live far beneath the sea. The Sea Kings, massive beings capable of communicating across vast distances, once spoke about a future moment when two sovereigns would be born. Their conversation hinted that these two individuals would eventually meet and change the world forever. This prophecy has puzzled fans for years, but when placed alongside Roger's actions, it begins to make sense. If the future depended on the arrival of two specific figures, then Roger would have known he could not fulfill that role himself. His era simply came too soon. One of the sovereigns mentioned by the Sea Kings is believed to be the mermaid princess connected to the ancient weapon Poseidon. The other sovereign, however, is far more mysterious. Whoever that second figure is, they would need to possess the will, power, and spirit capable of challenging the forces that have controlled the world for centuries. Roger may have realized that the person destined to carry that role had not yet appeared. And this is where the story begins to move from history into the present. Because if the prophecy about the two sovereigns is real, then those figures must exist somewhere in the world today. The first sovereign has already been identified through the legacy of Poseidon. But the second sovereign, the one capable of standing against the forces that erased the Void Century, may already be sailing across the seas. A pirate whose journey mirrors Roger's own path across the Grand Line. A captain who gathers allies not through fear, but through freedom and loyalty. Someone who carries a mysterious inherited will that has appeared again and again throughout history. That possibility points directly toward Luffy. The boy who set sail from a small village with nothing but a straw hat and a dream may be far more important than anyone ever imagined. If Roger truly believed the world needed to wait for the right person to appear, then the entire Great Pirate era may have been a countdown, one designed to lead the next generation toward the moment when the prophecy could finally come true. And if that moment is approaching now, it means one of the sovereigns may already be moving closer to Laugh-Tale, without even realizing it. Long before the current pirate era began, a mysterious prophecy echoed through the depths of the ocean. It wasn't written in books or carved into stone like the Poneglyphs. Instead, it was spoken by the ancient rulers of the sea themselves, the massive creatures known as the Sea Kings. These colossal beings, capable of communicating across vast distances beneath the ocean, once spoke about a future moment when two sovereigns would rise and change the fate of the world forever. Their words hinted at a meeting that would shake the balance of power that had existed for centuries. In the world of One Piece, prophecies are never random. When the Sea Kings speak about the future, it usually means the events they describe are tied to something ancient and deeply rooted in the lost history of the world. The idea of two kings emerging at the same time suggests that the future of the world does not depend on a single hero alone. Instead, it requires a partnership. Two individuals born in different places but destined to meet and reshape the world together. The first of these sovereigns seems easier to identify. The Sea Kings themselves once spoke about the rebirth of Poseidon, the ancient weapon that holds the power to command the creatures of the sea. That power eventually appeared in the form of a young mermaid princess named Shirahoshi. Unlike other ancient weapons rumored to be tools of destruction, Poseidon is unique because its power lies in communication rather than force. Shirahoshi possesses the ability to speak directly with sea kings, forming a bond with them that no other human can replicate. This connection instantly places her at the center of the prophecy. If one sovereign is destined to command the ocean itself, then Poseidon represents the authority of the sea. Yet even with that incredible power, Shirahoshi alone cannot reshape the world. The prophecy specifically mentions two sovereigns appearing together, which means another figure must exist somewhere beyond the ocean's depths. That second sovereign is far more mysterious, but many clues point toward one individual whose journey has mirrored the legends of the past. A pirate who carries the will of those who came before him. A captain whose presence seems to awaken hope and rebellion everywhere he sails. That pirate is Luffy. From the moment he set sail, Luffy has displayed an unusual connection to the hidden forces of the world. He possesses the rare ability known as the voice of all things, allowing him to sense emotions and intentions beyond normal human perception. Creatures that normally ignore humans seem drawn to him. Ancient figures tied to the Void Century react strongly when they encounter him. And most importantly, Luffy embodies the spirit of freedom that the lost civilization once represented. While Shirahoshi holds authority over the sea itself, Luffy represents the will of humanity to live freely without oppression. Together, they form a balance between ocean and land, power and spirit, two forces capable of changing the structure of the world. If this prophecy is real, then the meeting between these two sovereigns could mark the moment when the secrets of the past finally return to the surface. The ancient kingdom destroyed during the Void Century may have anticipated this future long before it happened. They knew that the knowledge they protected could only be revealed when the right people existed to act on it. That realization may explain the true purpose of the mysterious stone tablets scattered across the world. The ancient civilization did not simply hide their history randomly. They left a trail of clues designed to guide the next generation toward the truth when the time was right. Among those clues are the most important poneglyphs ever created. The 4 stones known as the Road Poneglyphs. These ancient markers hold the coordinates needed to locate Laugh-Tale, the place where the full truth of the Void Century waits to be discovered. In other words, the Road Poneglyphs may exist specifically to guide the two sovereigns toward their final destination. Because once those stones are gathered and the path to Laugh-Tale is revealed, the world will finally be forced to confront the history it tried so hard to erase. The Road Poneglyphs are among the most mysterious artifacts in the world of One Piece, and their true purpose goes far beyond simply marking a destination on a map. While many pirates assume that the stones function as a set of coordinates, those who study the ancient history of the world realize they likely serve a far more complex function. Each poneglyph contains information that cannot be understood by mere numbers or letters alone. Instead, they may act as a kind of celestial navigation system, connecting the physical world to the heavens above. For centuries, scholars and fans have speculated that the Road Poneglyphs are not just static objects, but are aligned with stars, moons, and other astronomical markers that shift over time. To reach Laugh-Tale, it isn't enough to know where the stones are. One must also know when to read them, which celestial alignments correspond to the correct positions, and how to interpret the subtle hints left by the ancient kingdom. This combination of location and timing may explain why only a handful of people throughout history, like Roger, have ever succeeded in reaching Laugh-Tale. What makes the Road Poneglyphs particularly fascinating is how they intertwine with the larger cosmology of the world. The sun and the moon appear repeatedly as symbols in the story, suggesting a connection between celestial bodies and the forces that shape the seas and islands. If the Road Poneglyphs are designed to interact with these celestial markers, then they become a guide not just through the oceans, but through time itself. Ancient sailors may have relied on the stars to navigate, but the civilization of the Void Century seems to have embedded a far deeper secret within these stones. Each poneglyph could be a waypoint in a larger celestial map, designed to align with Laugh-Tale only when specific astronomical conditions are met. This would ensure that the treasure at the end of the Grand Line is not merely a physical object to be found, but a revelation timed to coincide with the moment when the world is ready to understand its meaning. The implications of this are staggering. It suggests that the journey to Laugh-Tale is not purely about skill, strength, or determination. It is also about timing, perception, and connection to forces that most characters do not even understand. The Straw Hats themselves have already experienced small glimpses of this in their adventures. Consider Nami's obsession with mapping the world, or Sanji's quest to find the All Blue. These are not merely personal goals. They are symbolic of humanity's desire to understand the natural and celestial order. By linking the Road Poneglyphs to stars and moons, the ancient civilization effectively created a puzzle that could only be solved by those capable of perceiving patterns in both the heavens and the seas. In other words, Laugh-Tale is not just hidden geographically, it is hidden temporally, astronomically, and spiritually, waiting for the convergence of conditions that occur only rarely, perhaps once every 800 years. This intricate system also sheds light on the unusual name of the Road Poneglyphs. Some scholars suggest that the name can be interpreted as Load Poneglyph, implying that they serve as celestial waypoints, or loads of information that must be carried and interpreted correctly to reach the island. This subtle play on words emphasizes that the poneglyphs are not simply markers, but instruments of navigation, designed to guide those who understand their function toward the ultimate destination. They embody a combination of geography, astronomy, and history, ensuring that only those with the insight to read both the world and the sky can uncover the secrets of Laugh-Tale. In this sense, the Road Poneglyphs are not merely tools. They are the guardians of truth, protecting the revelations of the Void Century until the two sovereigns appear at the right moment in history. And that delicate timing, combined with celestial alignment, explains why so few have ever reached the island and why its secrets have remained hidden for centuries. The poneglyphs, in essence, are the bridge between past and future, guiding the destined rulers toward the culmination of a plan set in motion long before the Great Pirate Era began. The Road Poneglyphs carry a name that, on the surface, seems simple enough: a reference to the path that leads to Laugh-Tale. But the more you examine the words, the more it becomes clear that Eiichiro Oda may have embedded a subtle but powerful layer of meaning. Some theorists have proposed that road is a deliberate play on words, hinting that these stones might actually function as Road Poneglyphs. This interpretation reframes their purpose entirely. Rather than simply serving as static markers or coordinates, they could act as a mechanism for loading essential navigational data into a system capable of interpreting the island's true location. In other words, the poneglyphs may serve a function analogous to modern GPS or a data-driven compass, but one that relies on natural forces rather than electronics. Each stone might hold a piece of the puzzle, and when combined, they load the necessary information to pinpoint Laugh-Tale, integrating both spatial and temporal dimensions that no ordinary map could ever capture. If this theory holds, the implications are enormous. The combination of magnetic fields, celestial markers, and ocean currents would create a navigational system so precise that it could account for the movement of the island itself along the Dragon Stream. Imagine a mechanism where the magnetic polarity of the Earth, the position of the stars, and the predictable but complex currents of the Grand Line interact in a way that only the stones can interpret. The Road Poneglyphs could essentially be a series of keys that unlock the secret pattern of nature, translating raw environmental forces into actionable directions. This would explain why even the most skilled navigators struggled to reach Laugh-Tale without them. It's not just about knowing coordinates or following a chart. It's about interpreting a dynamic system that changes with time and location. Without the poneglyphs, no human, or even pirate, could reliably navigate the vast and ever-shifting Grand Line to its ultimate destination. The idea that the stones load information also ties into a deeper narrative theme in One Piece: the intersection of human ingenuity and natural law. The civilization that created the poneglyphs understood that knowledge alone was insufficient. They anticipated that the world would face eras when information could be misused or ignored. By embedding the coordinates into a system that interacts directly with the environment, they ensured that only those capable of understanding the delicate balance of forces, the destined sovereigns, would succeed. This method protects the secrets of the Void Century while also creating a narrative test for those seeking to uncover them. Pirates may hunt treasure, but the true challenge is reading the world itself, sensing the interplay of star, sea, and magnetic field, and allowing the poneglyphs to guide them at exactly the right moment. In this way, the Road Poneglyphs act as both a key and a filter, ensuring that only the worthy, prepared, and perceptive can reach the truth. However, such an intricate system would not have gone unnoticed by the powers that be. The world government, ever vigilant and protective of its authority, clearly understood the potential of these stones. Historical records and poneglyph fragments suggest that the celestial dragons and their predecessors knew of the load function long before the modern era. They may have recognized that if the coordinates of Laugh-Tale were ever fully decoded, it could empower individuals or factions to challenge their control. This explains the extreme secrecy and heavy protections placed around poneglyphs in general, and why anyone attempting to piece together the Road Poneglyphs risks severe consequences. The system was designed not just to guide, but also to prevent the unready from unlocking knowledge that could destabilize the world. By embedding coordinates into natural phenomena and linking them to celestial alignments, the creators ensured that only the right people at the right time could access Laugh-Tale. The combination of environmental navigation, celestial patterns, and historical timing created a safeguard that even the most ambitious pirates could not bypass. And so, while the load function may be a genius mechanism to locate the island, it also represents a profound message from the ancient world. Some truths must wait for history itself to align before they can be revealed. This careful orchestration of knowledge, nature, and destiny sets the stage for the next chapter of the journey toward the final island. The mysterious bridges that span the oceans in the world of One Piece have intrigued fans for decades. These colossal structures, known collectively as the Four Great Bridges, have been under construction for an astonishing 700 years, a testament to both ambition and obsession. Historians and theorists alike have speculated about their true purpose. At first glance, they appear to be simple feats of engineering, monumental attempts to connect distant islands or facilitate trade. But when examined alongside other clues about Laugh-Tale, a far more profound purpose emerges. Many experts believe the bridges were never meant to meet land. Instead, they may have been designed as a kind of containment system, an attempt to trap or intercept Laugh-Tale whenever it appears along its unpredictable course. This notion aligns with the broader patterns of control seen in the world government's actions. They fear knowledge, and they fear those who could uncover it. The bridges may have been a centuries-long strategy to corner an island that moves according to cycles and currents no human fully understands. The engineering behind the bridges themselves is staggering, highlighting just how seriously the builders took this project. Spanning thousands of miles, the bridges were constructed with durability in mind, designed to withstand the extreme conditions of the Grand Line, from violent sea currents to massive storms and even seismic activity. Their construction was not continuous in the sense of human lifespans. Rather, generations upon generations worked on them, suggesting a multi-century vision guided by a single overarching purpose. But despite the monumental effort, the bridges never connected with any landmass, leading many to question the logic behind their design. The theory that Laugh-Tale moves along the Dragon Stream and only appears in certain hemispheres provides a compelling answer. If the island shifts over time, attempting to pin it down with stationary structures is doomed to fail. No matter how long the bridges extend, if the island itself is dynamic, then they will always fall short, eternally hovering over open sea, waiting for a target that is never in the same place twice. This line of reasoning also sheds light on the world government's intentions. The organization has always feared the truth of the Void Century and the knowledge contained at Laugh-Tale. By attempting to trap the island, they could theoretically prevent any pirate, or even a sovereign destined to fulfill the prophecy, from uncovering its secrets. The bridges, then, serve as both a literal and symbolic barrier. They are physical attempts to impose order on a world that resists it, and ideological representations of control imposed upon nature and history. The failure of the bridges to reach land is almost poetic. It illustrates the futility of trying to control forces larger than any government or human lifespan, whether those forces are the tides, currents, or the hidden movements of the world itself. Despite centuries of labor, the island has remained untouchable, moving along its predetermined path, seemingly guided by ancient design rather than human ambition. The dynamic nature of Laughtale explains why the bridges never succeeded. The island does not sit still. It moves along the Dragon Stream, appearing once every 800 years in a location dictated by celestial, magnetic, and oceanic conditions. To the untrained eye, this movement might seem random, but to those with knowledge of the cycles, it is part of a precise, orchestrated system that has persisted for millennia. The 700-year construction project was doomed from the start because its creators failed to account for this complexity. Every stone laid, every arch raised, was a testament to human ingenuity and human hubris. But ultimately, it was not enough to contain an island that dances to the rhythms of time and nature. This failure reinforces the theme that pervades the Grand Line and the story of One Piece itself. The world is governed by forces far beyond individual control. Laughtale is not just a treasure. It is a moving testament to history, nature, and destiny, remaining forever out of reach of those who try to bend it to their will. And as the Straw Hats or any future sovereign approaches, they must understand that the island's elusiveness is not a flaw. It is its very purpose. Beneath the imposing peak of Reverse Mountain lies a secret that has eluded generations of pirates and scholars alike. While Reverse Mountain has long been recognized as the gateway to the Grand Line, some evidence suggests that the true significance of this location runs far deeper. Ancient records, cryptic poneglyph inscriptions, and subtle clues hidden in the behavior of the seas all point to the possibility that Laughtale itself may lie beneath the Red Line, hidden under layers of ocean currents, shifting rock formations, and geological phenomena. If this theory is correct, the Straw Hats may have already passed over the island during their journey, completely unaware of its presence. The very waters they navigated, seemingly ordinary at first glance, could have concealed paths, whirlpools, and undersea currents that mask the entrance to the island. The idea that Laughtale is literally below Reverse Mountain adds a striking new layer of complexity to the Grand Line, transforming a well-known landmark into a nexus of ancient secrets and destiny. The theory gains credibility when we consider the movements and actions of Roger. Historical accounts suggest that Roger circumnavigated the world not merely to collect treasure or make history, but potentially to follow a path that would bring him back to this singular point beneath Reverse Mountain. His laughter upon reaching Laughtale, as documented in Chapter 967, may have been tied not to material wealth, but to the profound realization of the island's location and the truth hidden beneath the surface. Roger's journey hints at a deeper design in the world itself, a plan encoded in currents, mountains, and islands that only someone with both knowledge and fate on their side could fully comprehend. By returning to the area under Reverse Mountain, Roger may have been completing a circuit not of geography alone, but of time, history, and legacy, connecting himself with Joy Boy's ancient era and setting the stage for future sovereigns to continue the work he could not finish. Geographically, the area beneath Reverse Mountain is fascinating. The Red Line, a massive continental barrier separating the world's seas, intersects with the Grand Line at this point, creating unique oceanographic phenomena. The convergence of currents here forms whirlpools, undersea waterfalls, and complex eddies that could obscure an island or make it appear and disappear depending on the alignment of natural forces. The Dragon Stream, flowing like a 2,000-year planetary current, passes through this area, and it is plausible that Laughtail is carried along or concealed within this dynamic system. The Straw Hat's own journey may have interacted with these currents in subtle ways, guiding them near the island without ever allowing them to set foot on it. Nami's navigational skills, the Thousand Sunnies' design, and even the presence of whales like Laboon all hint at a larger pattern connecting Reverse Mountain to the hidden heart of the Grand Line. If Laughtail is beneath the Red Line, then the mountain itself is more than a landmark. It is a protective gate, a guardian of knowledge waiting for those capable of deciphering its secrets. Yet even with this revelation, we are only scratching the surface of the mystery. The fact that Laughtail might lie beneath Reverse Mountain raises questions about the island's accessibility, its movement, and the cycles that govern it. Why was it hidden in such a way? How does its position relate to the Road Poneglyphs, the Dragon Stream, and the 800-year cycles tied to Joy Boy and the Void Century? The ocean, the currents, and the very shape of the world seem to conspire to protect the island until the destined sovereigns arrive. For Roger, the truth was tantalizingly close yet incomplete. For Luffy and the Straw Hats, the challenge is even greater, requiring not just skill, but timing, insight, and understanding of forces that transcend ordinary navigation. The location beneath Reverse Mountain is a revelation that reframes the entire journey of the Grand Line. The adventure is not just about reaching a destination, but about interpreting the hidden patterns of the world itself. And as the Straw Hats edge closer to the truth, they are only beginning to uncover the first half of a much larger enigma, one that could reshape history, challenge authority, and reveal the long-buried secrets of Laughtail. The laughter of Roger upon reaching Laughtail has been one of the most enigmatic moments in the entire One Piece narrative. For centuries, fans assumed that the legendary treasure of Laughtail was material wealth, gold, jewels, or some unimaginable hoard amassed by Joy Boy or previous civilizations. But Roger's laughter, recorded in chapter 967, hints at something far more profound. Laughter, after all, is rarely an expression of mere satisfaction at wealth. It conveys understanding, revelation, and often the realization of something that has eluded human comprehension. The treasure of Laughtail, therefore, seems less like a pile of riches and more like the culmination of knowledge, a truth so staggering that it evoked uncontainable joy in the man who had spent his life chasing the Grand Line's greatest secret. In this sense, the treasure itself may not be tangible in the way pirates expect, but intellectual and spiritual, offering insights that could change the very course of history. What might this treasure be, exactly? Many theorists point toward the true history of the world, the story of the Void Century, the Ancient Kingdom, and the lineage of Joy Boy. The world we see in One Piece today has been shaped by deliberate erasure, with the world government actively suppressing knowledge of events from 900 years ago. The treasure of Laugh-Tale could therefore be a repository of this suppressed knowledge, encoded in poneglyphs, records, or other artifacts left by the civilization that predates the world government. Roger's reaction suggests that this truth is liberating and astonishing, capable of reshaping how one understands power, freedom, and the human condition. Unlike material wealth, which can corrupt or inspire greed, this kind of treasure demands comprehension, moral awareness, and courage to act upon its revelations. The treasure may be a philosophical inheritance as much as a historical one, a reminder that the greatest riches lie not in gold but in understanding and wisdom. Furthermore, the treasure could represent Joy Boy's final message, the culmination of a plan spanning centuries. Joy Boy, a figure intertwined with the Void Century and the Will of D, is emblematic of freedom, courage, and defiance against oppression. His message, possibly encoded in the treasure, would have been intended for those capable of continuing his mission, those who could grasp the weight of history and the responsibility it carries. Roger's laughter, in this context, becomes an acknowledgement that he understood the magnitude of what lay before him, even if the world around him did not. The message might reveal not only past events, but also the principles guiding the destiny of future sovereigns, such as Luffy, who will need both strength and wisdom to navigate the conflicts ahead. It is a treasure of continuity, connecting eras and ensuring that the ideals of Joy Boy persist even as time and governments attempt to suppress them. In this sense, Laugh-Tale's treasure is simultaneously a revelation and a challenge, offering knowledge that is both illuminating and perilous. And perilous it is, because the revelation of Laugh-Tale's truth inevitably attracts enemies who seek to control or suppress it. The world government, Emu, and other antagonistic forces are aware, at least in part, of the power that such knowledge represents. Roger, even with his strength and foresight, could not act fully upon the information he discovered, as the world itself was not yet ready. By the time Luffy and the Straw Hats encounter these truths, they are likely to face formidable opposition intent on maintaining the status quo and preventing history from being unveiled. The treasure's significance is not merely historical. It is political and existential, threatening entrenched powers and upending centuries of constructed authority. Thus, the true wealth of Laugh-Tale is double-edged. It offers liberation, insight, and the continuation of Joy Boy's legacy. But it also sets the stage for conflict with forces who fear the consequences of its revelation. Understanding this treasure requires courage, foresight, and a readiness to face both the wisdom and the danger it embodies, a challenge that defines the next chapter of the story as the world's hidden history begins to collide with the ambitions of the present. The Void Century in One Piece is one of the most puzzling and deliberately obscured periods in the world's history. Spanning a full 100 years, this era is conspicuously absent from official records, hidden from historians, and actively erased by the world government. Scholars and pirates alike have speculated endlessly about what happened during this time, and the prevailing theory is that it marks the rise and catastrophic fall of an ancient kingdom, a civilization so powerful, so influential, that its mere existence posed a threat to what would become the world government. This kingdom, likely tied to Joy Boy and the Will of D, represented ideals of freedom, exploration, and resistance against tyranny. Its disappearance was no accident. It was the result of a systematic campaign to suppress knowledge, erase cultural memory, and ensure that the narrative of history could be controlled by those in power. Every poneglyph, every hidden text, every cryptic oral legend serves as a faint echo of this lost age, a whisper of the truth that the world government sought to obliterate. The formation of the world government itself appears to be intrinsically linked to the erasure of the Void Century. The organization's founding members recognized that the knowledge of the ancient kingdom would destabilize the new order they intended to impose. By suppressing this history, they could legitimize their rule, manipulate populations, and prevent the emergence of leaders or movements that might challenge their authority. Yet, paradoxically, their efforts to erase the past created the very mysteries that continue to drive pirates and adventurers toward the Grand Line. Laughtale, in this context, becomes the repository of what the world government sought to destroy. It may contain the original records, the final proof, and perhaps artifacts of the ancient kingdom itself. For those capable of interpreting them, individuals with the courage, intellect, and resolve to understand the will of D, these discoveries could illuminate the true nature of freedom, justice, and history. Laughtale is thus more than a destination. It is the key to unlocking a millennium-old conspiracy and recovering the knowledge of an entire civilization that was all but erased. This suppressed history also explains the emergence and significance of the will of D. The D lineage appears consistently in individuals who resist oppression, challenge authority, and possess an innate sense of destiny. The erased kingdom's ideals seem to live on through these individuals, whose actions ripple across centuries, often in ways the world government cannot predict or contain. By hiding the truth of the Void Century, the world government has indirectly created a puzzle for those with the will of D to solve, a test of insight, courage, and timing. Laughtale, as the focal point of this mystery, is where the accumulated knowledge of the ancient kingdom, Joy Boy's legacy, and the patterns of fate converge. Accessing it is not merely about reaching a physical location. It is about interpreting history correctly, understanding the cycles of the world, and grasping the weight of inherited responsibility. The will of D is not a name alone. It is the living thread connecting those who can perceive the world beyond surface appearances and resist manipulation by hidden powers. And this is precisely why Laughtale's treasure and the truth of the Void Century are so dangerous. The knowledge contained within could destabilize centuries of carefully constructed authority, exposing the lies and manipulations that underpin the world government. It is no coincidence that pirates who approach these truths encounter extreme opposition, and that the most significant figures, Roger, Joy Boy, Luffy, are all linked by the will of D. The hidden history, Laughtale, and the D lineage form a triad of revelation, destiny, and action. Those who uncover these secrets inherit not only knowledge but responsibility. To challenge oppression, to act with foresight, and to safeguard the ideals of freedom that the ancient kingdom once embodied. In this sense, the Void Century is not merely a gap in history. It is a blueprint for understanding the world's past, present, and potential future. Laughtale, then, is the key to unlocking that blueprint, and the will of D is the spark that ensures the fire of truth and freedom continues to burn across generations. The will of D is one of the most mysterious and symbolically rich elements in One Piece, a thread connecting characters across generations and shaping the fate of the world itself. Those who carry the initial D in their names, Luffy, Roger, Waterlaw, and others, share a remarkable trait. They smile in the face of death, confronting danger with courage, defiance, and unflinching resolve. This behavior is not mere bravado. It reflects an inherited purpose and a deep understanding of history, as if their very lives are intertwined with forces beyond the ordinary. The D lineage appears to embody resistance to oppression, the pursuit of freedom, and a willingness to act in the face of impossible odds. Scholars within the world of One Piece theorize that this lineage may be a living link to the ancient kingdom of the Void Century, preserving its ideals, ethics, and defiance against the structures of power established by the world government. Every action of a D clan member seems to echo centuries of suppressed history, reinforcing the notion that they are destined to challenge the world's hidden truths. The descendants of the ancient kingdom carry a heavy responsibility, one that extends beyond personal ambition or desire. Their mission appears to be the revelation of hidden knowledge, the history deliberately erased by the world government, the existence of Joy Boy, the cycles of the Void Century, and ultimately, the truth of Laugh Tale. This mission is inherently dangerous, for those who seek such truths must contend with enemies who will go to any lengths to preserve the status quo. The will of D is therefore both a gift and a burden. It grants courage, resilience, and insight, yet it places its bearers on a path fraught with peril, forcing them to confront moral, physical, and existential challenges. The D lineage is, in essence, a continuity of rebellion, a thread of resistance woven into the very fabric of history, connecting the ambitions of the ancient kingdom with the struggles and destinies of present-day pirates. Moreover, the will of D is closely tied to the cyclical nature of history in One Piece, particularly the 800-year cycles linked to Laugh Tale, Joy Boy, and the ancient kingdom. The D clan members appear at critical moments in history, their actions shaping events in ways that align with the ideals of freedom, justice, and truth. This pattern suggests that the will of D is not merely inherited genetically, but is part of a greater cosmic design, guiding those who carry it toward specific purposes. Luffy, as a current bearer of the will of D, is poised to challenge oppression on a global scale, following in the footsteps of Roger and Joy Boy. The legacy demands that the D clan confront not only physical adversaries, but also the structures of control, manipulation, and secrecy imposed by the world government. Their smiles in the face of danger signify understanding, acceptance, and determination. They are prepared to sacrifice, act, and endure for the sake of revealing truth and restoring freedom, regardless of personal cost. Yet even as the D clan preserves the mission of the ancient kingdom, history shows that this legacy can be twisted. Pirates like Blackbeard, who manipulate powers and accumulate knowledge for selfish or destructive ends, serve as a dark counterpoint to the will of D. Where the D lineage embodies revelation, freedom, and hope, some pirates pervert that legacy to pursue control, domination, or chaos. This contrast highlights the duality at the heart of the One Piece world. The same potential for greatness and influence exists in different hands, and the choices of those who inherit history determine whether it brings liberation or destruction. The Will of D is therefore not merely a label or heritage. It is a living principle, a beacon of resistance and a measure of character. Those who carry it are tasked with aligning their actions with the ideals of the ancient kingdom, confronting both enemies and moral dilemmas, and ensuring that the suppressed truths of the Void Century and Laugh Tale reach those capable of understanding and acting upon them. In this way, the Will of D defines the stakes, the responsibilities, and the ultimate purpose of those who shape the world's destiny. The emergence of Teach, better known as Blackbeard, represents a dark reflection of Luffy, a mirror in which Luffy's ideals are inverted and distorted. While Luffy embodies light, creation, and freedom, Blackbeard represents shadow, destruction, and control. This duality is frequently symbolized through sun and moon imagery, Luffy as the sun, illuminating the world, empowering others, and spreading life and hope. Blackbeard as the moon, cold, consuming, and capable of eclipsing the potential of others. Where Luffy's journey seeks liberation, joy, and the realization of dreams, Blackbeard pursues dominance, exploitation, and the accumulation of power by any means necessary. This opposition is not merely thematic, it is deeply structural, shaping the narrative's moral and philosophical center. Blackbeard exists to challenge Luffy, to test the limits of the Will of D, and to illustrate what the world could become if power is pursued without conscience, foresight, or compassion. The story positions them as two sides of the same coin. One can create, inspire, and unite. The other can destroy, manipulate, and control. Blackbeard's symbolism extends beyond abstract opposition. It manifests in his abilities and strategies. While Luffy's devil fruit, the sun god Nika fruit, embodies freedom, elasticity, and boundless creativity, Blackbeard wields two of the most destructive devil fruits in existence: the Yami Yami no Mi, which nullifies other powers, and the Gura Gura no Mi, capable of causing apocalyptic destruction. These powers mirror his philosophy of control through domination. He subjugates natural forces and weaponizes chaos, bending the world to his will. This contrasts sharply with Luffy, who aligns with the natural flow of life and emotion, empowering allies and embracing unpredictability as a source of strength. The sun versus moon dichotomy is reflected in these abilities, emphasizing the thematic balance between creation and annihilation, freedom and oppression. Every confrontation between the two is therefore not just a battle of strength, but a clash of cosmic principles, representing the fate of the world itself. Blackbeard's rise is the shadow cast by Luffy's light, and the narrative repeatedly underscores that both must exist for the story's tension and stakes to hold. Beyond symbolism, Blackbeard's very body carries secrets that elevate the danger he represents. Unlike other characters, he seems capable of harboring multiple personalities or even separate entities within a single frame, an idea reinforced by the plural references made to him in the series, and by his capacity to wield 2 devil fruits, a feat thought impossible. Theories abound that Blackbeard may not be a singular being in the traditional sense, but rather a vessel for inherited will, possibly containing remnants of legendary figures like Zebek. This potential multiplicity allows him to circumvent natural limitations, exploit forbidden knowledge, and manipulate others with uncanny precision. In narrative terms, this makes him an unpredictable and almost mythical force, a personification of the shadow side of ambition. While Luffy's strength grows through bonds, trust, and shared experiences, Blackbeard's power grows through consumption, appropriation, and manipulation, making him a dangerous foil in every sense. His very existence challenges the natural order, contrasting with Luffy's alignment with harmony, life, and collective progress. Ultimately, Blackbeard is the thematic and narrative counterweight to Luffy. He embodies what the world could become if ambition is divorced from ethics, if knowledge is hoarded rather than shared, and if freedom is sacrificed for control. His contrast with Luffy amplifies the stakes of every journey, every battle, and every revelation surrounding Laugh Tale, the Void Century, and the will of D Sun and Moon, freedom and control, creation and destruction. All these polarities converge in their conflict, framing it as both inevitable and monumental. Blackbeard's role is not merely to oppose Luffy physically, but to embody the consequences of a legacy twisted by selfish desire, serving as a cautionary reflection of what the will of D, and indeed the world itself, might confront. And yet, the darkness he carries is not fully visible, for his body conceals secrets and capabilities that elevate him to near mythical status, ensuring that his presence will continue to shape the path of history, the revelations of Laugh Tale, and the ultimate struggle between freedom and domination. The enigma of Teach extends far beyond his reputation as a ruthless pirate. The clues scattered throughout the story suggest that he may, in fact, be more than one person, or at least host multiple entities within a single body. Observant fans have noted the consistent use of plural pronouns when other characters refer to Blackbeard, hinting that there might be a multiplicity at play. This linguistic choice is far from accidental, as One Piece is known for embedding subtle narrative cues into dialogue, visual symbols, and recurring motifs. By referring to him as they, Oda implies that Blackbeard may not be a singular, straightforward human, but rather a vessel, a composite, or a being containing multiple wills. This notion gains further credibility when paired with other anomalies in his characterization, all of which point to an individual, or a body, that operates beyond conventional rules of life, death, and physical limitation. One of the most striking visual cues supporting this theory is Blackbeard's Jolly Roger, which uniquely features 3 skulls instead of the standard single skull that marks most pirate flags. The number 3 appears repeatedly in connection with him. 3 pistols, 3 ships in his fleet, 3 significant relatives mentioned in passing, and, crucially, the 3 skulls symbolizing a triadic nature. Within One Piece's rich symbolism, numbers are rarely arbitrary. They often hint at lineage, hidden powers, or thematic resonance. The triad motif may represent 3 distinct entities coexisting within Blackbeard's body: 3 facets of his personality, or even 3 generations of inherited will condensed into a single form. This symbolic layering suggests that his presence in the story functions on multiple levels. He is not merely an antagonist, but a complex enigma, embodying both the literal and metaphorical convergence of destructive power, ambition, and historical legacy. Adding another layer to the mystery is Blackbeard's unprecedented ability to wield 2 devil fruits simultaneously, a feat previously thought impossible under the established rules of One Piece. The Yami Yami no Mi and Gura Gura no Mi, both exceptionally powerful and incompatible with ordinary human physiology, are both mastered by him. Some theorists propose that the dual fruits are possible precisely because he is more than one person, or because his body contains multiple wills that allow for the coexistence of powers that would otherwise conflict. This interpretation is further reinforced by his remarkable ability to absorb the abilities of others, most notably through the Yami Yami no Mi, which may extend to not just powers, but also consciousness, experience, and intent. If Blackbeard's body is a vessel for multiple entities, it would explain both the plural references and his unparalleled aptitude for accumulating strength, knowledge, and influence, elevating him from a formidable pirate to a living symbol of chaos and inherited ambition. All of these clues point toward a central origin for Blackbeard's peculiar abilities: the mysterious God Valley incident. Roughly 38 years prior in the story's timeline, God Valley was the site of a confrontation between legendary pirates, marines, and the forces that would eventually form the world government. It is theorized that during this event, a unique convergence of powers, wills, and events occurred, one that may have allowed Blackbeard to inherit the abilities, consciousness, or even fragments of legendary figures like Xebec. This would not only account for his plural nature, but also situate him as a living continuation of a historical legacy that intersects directly with the rise of the world government and the hidden truths of the Void Century. In this sense, Blackbeard is not simply a pirate, but a composite anomaly, a vessel carrying echoes of history, ambition, and destructive potential. Understanding this multiplicity is essential to deciphering the broader story of One Piece, for it ties together past events, the dynamics of inherited will, and the forces that are ultimately driving the path to Laugh Tale and the final revelations of the series. The shadow of Xebec looms over the world of One Piece, and the connection between him and Teach may hold the key to understanding the rise of Blackbeard as an almost mythic force. Xebec was not merely a pirate. He was a visionary, or perhaps a tyrant, whose ambition extended far beyond ordinary plunder. He dreamed of reshaping the world itself, uniting or subjugating nations under his ideology, and challenging the structures of power that would later become the world government. His legacy was so dangerous that God Valley became a defining moment in history, a battle that erased him and much of the knowledge surrounding his ambitions. In the aftermath, the world government meticulously worked to suppress every trace of Xebec's influence, ensuring that the knowledge of his plans and power remained buried. Yet somehow, fragments of his will appear to have survived, potentially finding their way into the hands, or body, of Blackbeard. Blackbeard's unique abilities, unusual body, and unprecedented possession of 2 devil fruits suggest more than mere luck or cunning. They may be the manifestation of Xebek's will living on. God Valley was not just a battle. It was a crucible that transformed the landscape of the pirate world and created conditions in which someone could inherit Xebek's vision, his ambition, and possibly even elements of his consciousness. In this sense, Blackbeard is more than a pirate seeking personal power. He could be the chosen vessel for a centuries-old plan to resurrect Xebek's legacy. Every conquest, alliance, and acquisition of power may be a step toward reconstructing what was lost, a deliberate attempt to rewrite history in the image of Xebek's ambitions. The parallels are chilling. Like Xebek, Blackbeard operates from the shadows, manipulates others to serve his ends, and pursues forces of unimaginable destructive potential, whether through devil fruits, technology, or the accumulation of loyal, powerful subordinates. Furthermore, the consequences of reviving Xebek's will are far-reaching and existential in scope. It is not merely a conflict between pirates. It is a collision of philosophies, ambitions, and legacies that have spanned centuries. Luffy, Roger, Joy Boy, and the D-Clan represent one axis: freedom, revelation, and the pursuit of truth. Blackbeard, potentially carrying Xebek's will, embodies the opposite axis: control, domination, and the resurrection of a dangerous vision suppressed for the safety of the world. This dichotomy frames the ultimate narrative tension in One Piece, a clash not just of individuals, but of historical legacies. Blackbeard's rise ensures that the final war is not only inevitable but also existential. The stakes are global, and the outcome may reshape the fundamental structures of the world. Every hint of his past, every plural reference, every seemingly impossible ability points toward a destiny intertwined with the unfinished ambitions of Xebek. Finally, this looming shadow connects directly to the timing and scale of the final conflict. The D-Clan, the sovereigns of Laugh-Tale, and Blackbeard as the vessel of Xebek's will all exist in a delicate balance, orchestrated across centuries by history itself. The cycles of 800 years, the mysteries of Laugh-Tale, and the will of D converge precisely at this moment, setting the stage for a confrontation that will determine the fate of the world. Blackbeard is not simply a pirate to be defeated. He is a historical force, a living embodiment of a dangerous legacy, and a catalyst for events that will inevitably draw every major faction into war. The shadow of Xebek ensures that this is no ordinary pirate story. It is a story of inherited ambition, suppressed truth, and the collision of centuries of ideals. The stage is set, the final war is coming, and the echoes of God Valley will resonate once again, shaping the destiny of every character, island, and kingdom in the One Piece world. The struggle between technology and freedom in One Piece is far more than a surface-level battle of power. It is a philosophical confrontation that underpins the series' narrative tension. On one side stands the world government, a sprawling organization that wields technology, military might, and bureaucratic control as instruments to maintain order, suppress truth, and enforce compliance. From ancient weapons capable of mass destruction to the manipulation of devil fruits, their tools are designed to shape reality according to their will. Technology in this context is not neutral. It is a means of domination. It creates an artificial hierarchy in which only those approved by the world government can wield ultimate influence, while the rest of the world exists under strict rules, surveillance, and threat of annihilation. Every weapon, every plan, and every innovation is calibrated not for justice, but to enforce obedience, suppress history, and prevent the cycles of freedom embodied by Joy Boy, Roger, and Luffy from repeating. In contrast, Teach represents a more personal, yet equally destructive approach to control. Unlike the world government, which relies on systems, bureaucracy, and technology, Blackbeard seeks domination through brute ambition, opportunism, and the accumulation of unnatural powers. By absorbing devil fruits and possibly the wills of past figures like Zebek, he bypasses conventional limits, creating chaos wherever he steps. He does not seek to uplift or inspire, but to seize, manipulate, and bend others to his will. Where technology imposes control from a distance, Blackbeard enforces domination intimately through fear, coercion, and the literal accumulation of others' strengths. His actions are a stark counterpoint to Luffy's. Whereas Luffy spreads freedom, life, and hope, Blackbeard consolidates power, enforces hierarchy, and embodies the shadow side of ambition. In narrative terms, he is not just an antagonist. He is the philosophical foil to the themes of liberation and self-determination that define Luffy's journey. Luffy, meanwhile, operates entirely outside systems of oppression or conventional control. He embodies pure freedom, not just in a physical sense, but as an ideological and narrative force. Luffy's strength grows through bonds, trust, and mutual support. His victories are tied to his ability to inspire and unite, rather than dominate or manipulate. His devil fruit, the sun god Nika fruit, symbolizes elasticity, creation, and life-affirming power, and his mastery of Haki, particularly the voice of all things, places him in tune with the world itself rather than controlling it artificially. Luffy's freedom is expansive. It is personal, collective, and spiritual. It contrasts with both the cold machinery of the world government and the violent, opportunistic ambition of Blackbeard. In this way, One Piece frames freedom as not only a moral ideal, but also a tangible power, capable of counteracting control imposed by either technology or tyranny. The tension between these forces underscores every major conflict and guides the narrative toward the larger confrontation at Laugh Tale. Yet even Luffy's embodiment of freedom is not sufficient on its own to guarantee the future. Strength, ideals, and courage matter, but the balance of history, inherited will, and the complex interplay of cycles and legacies also shape outcomes. The world government's technological dominance, Blackbeard's accumulated powers, and the ongoing influence of historical forces like Zebek all create a context in which freedom must contend not only with brute force, but with centuries of suppressed knowledge, systemic oppression, and inherited ambitions. Luffy's victories, therefore, are never simple or guaranteed. They depend on alliances, strategy, and the moral weight of those who fight alongside him. The struggle between technology, control, and freedom highlights that the ultimate outcome is not determined merely by raw power, but by the alignment of will, history, and human connection. In this framework, freedom is both fragile and profound, a force that must be actively defended, nurtured, and passed forward, setting the stage for a final confrontation in which the stakes are nothing less than the future of the world itself. The concept of power in One Piece extends far beyond the flashy abilities granted by devil fruits, and the series repeatedly emphasizes that true strength often lies in forces invisible to the eye. Chief among these is Haki, the mysterious spiritual energy that allows a user to perceive, defend, and dominate in ways beyond physical ability. Haki manifests in three primary forms: observation, which allows the user to sense the presence, intentions, and even future actions of others; armament, which grants the ability to harden one's body or attacks to pierce defenses and resist harm; and Conqueror's Haki, an aura capable of overwhelming the will of weaker individuals, sometimes even knocking them unconscious. But beyond the mechanics, Haki represents a deeper connection. It is a conduit to understanding the world, reading the intent of others, and harmonizing one's own spirit with the larger flow of events. Characters like Roger, Kozuki Oden, and Luffy all exhibit exceptional mastery of Haki, each demonstrating the ability to perceive things beyond ordinary comprehension, act decisively in extraordinary circumstances, and inspire those around them to follow their lead. This is not merely a tool of combat. It is a force that bridges knowledge, will, and destiny, enabling them to interact with the world in ways that ordinary strength or even devil fruits cannot achieve. Intertwined with Haki is the mysterious voice of all things, an ability that allows certain individuals to hear the world itself. The cries of whales, the whispers of inanimate objects, and the messages left in poneglyphs and other ancient markers. This spiritual perception is crucial for understanding hidden truths, particularly the path to Laugh Tale. For instance, Laboon's journey, the markings left by previous generations of pirates, and the alignment of celestial and oceanic currents all communicate information that only those attuned to this power can interpret. Roger's success in circumnavigating the Grand Line and eventually reaching Laugh Tale is attributed not merely to skill or luck, but to his ability to perceive these hidden signals, to hear the history of the world, and to navigate according to knowledge encoded in living and non-living forms alike. Oden, too, demonstrates this ability through his meticulous study of poneglyphs, his understanding of history, and his uncanny anticipation of events on a planetary scale. Luffy, inheriting the mantle of the Will of D, seems uniquely positioned to combine these abilities with his devil fruit powers, bridging the gap between inherited will, natural destiny, and the forces that govern the world itself. The significance of these powers goes far beyond mere utility. They are intrinsically tied to the series' themes of inherited will, legacy, and the cyclical nature of history. The Will of D, a recurring motif in One Piece, is a lineage of intent carried across generations. Pirates, kings, and rebels who share a common drive to challenge the world's structures, reveal hidden truths, and uphold freedom in the face of oppression. Haki and the voice of all things act as amplifiers and conduits for this will. When Roger, Odin, and Luffy exercise these powers, they are not simply performing extraordinary feats. They are channeling the intentions of those who came before them, connecting with history, and aligning themselves with the unfolding trajectory of the world. Through these abilities, the invisible becomes tangible. The whispers of the past, the guidance of allies long gone, and the secrets of the planet itself converge to point toward Laugh Tale, the repository of knowledge, truth, and the culmination of centuries of ambition and sacrifice. Haki and the voice of all things, therefore, are both practical and symbolic, enabling these figures to transcend ordinary limitations while carrying forward the legacy embedded in the world's history. Yet these powers also underscore the delicate balance of destiny, effort, and inherited responsibility. While devil fruits can grant immense destructive or transformative abilities, they are limited by physical laws and the user's understanding. Haki and the voice of all things, in contrast, operate on a plane where comprehension, morality, and resonance with the world determine outcomes. Mastery of these abilities does not guarantee success. It demands alignment with the flow of history, the ability to interpret subtle signals, and the willingness to act in accordance with the responsibilities imposed by inherited will. In this sense, the pursuit of Laugh Tale is not simply a race for treasure or power. It is a test of perception, character, and legacy. The pathway to the final island is charted not only through maps or currents, but through the spiritual and historical attunement of those who dare to listen to the world itself. For Roger, Odin, and now Luffy, these powers represent the bridge between the past and the present, between the ambitions of Joy Boy and the potential of a new age, and between the raw strength of pirates and the enduring force of history itself. Mastery of Haki and the voice of all things, therefore, may ultimately be the key that allows humanity to reach Laugh Tale and confront the truths that lie hidden within. The theme of sacrifice in One Piece is one of the most profound undercurrents of the story, shaping not only individual characters, but the fate of the world itself. Roger's decision to start the Great Pirate Era was not a reckless act of self-interest. It was a deliberate choice made with an understanding of timing, legacy, and the future of the world. By proclaiming the existence of One Piece just before his death, Roger ensured that the spark of adventure, rebellion, and discovery would ignite across the seas. He understood that the world, constrained by the oppressive reach of the world government, was not yet ready to confront the truths hidden at Laugh Tale. His sacrifice was twofold. First, in enduring a life of extraordinary risk to gather knowledge of the world, the Void Century, and the location of the final island. Second, in relinquishing his own chance to reshape history directly. By passing the torch to the next generation, Roger transformed his death into a catalyst for change, ensuring that others, like Luffy, the D-Clan, and those inspired by the pirate legacy, would carry forward his mission. This act alone sets a precedent. Sacrifice in One Piece is rarely a senseless loss. It is a strategic, often painful, investment in the future, a choice to prioritize ideals over personal survival. Roger was far from the only figure to embrace this principle. Across the ages, many characters have confronted mortality to safeguard knowledge, protect allies, or preserve freedom. Odin gave his life to record the truth of the Poneglyphs, ensuring that future generations would have access to the information necessary to reach Laughtale. Clover sacrificed himself to protect the historical records of Ohara, standing firm against the might of the world government, even when death was certain. Noland, Odin, and even Joy Boy from centuries earlier illustrate the repeated pattern of giving one's life to preserve ideals and guide future inheritors of will. These acts are not isolated incidents. They are threads in a tapestry woven through generations, each sacrifice reinforcing the next. The repeated motif of death and legacy emphasizes the cyclical nature of history in one piece. Those who come before plant seeds that only bloom years, decades, or centuries later. Sacrifice is thus not the end. It is a mechanism of continuity, a way for knowledge, ideals, and rebellion to endure despite the oppressive forces aligned against them. This cycle of inherited will is central to understanding how One Piece frames its narrative. Every generation of pirates, particularly those connected to the D clan, carries the weight of past sacrifices while simultaneously making choices that will influence future events. Luffy's journey is only meaningful because of the cumulative actions of those who came before him. Roger, Joy Boy, Odin, and countless others. Each act of courage or selflessness resonates across time, creating ripples that shape the conditions in which the next generation operates. Sacrifice, in this sense, is both practical and symbolic. It passes knowledge, preserves ideals, and establishes moral imperatives. It is the invisible hand guiding events toward the eventual convergence at Laughtale, ensuring that when the final truths are revealed, the world is ready, or at least partially prepared, to understand them. The repeated pattern of inherited will demonstrates that power and ambition alone do not shape history. The endurance of ideals, often maintained through loss and suffering, is what allows change to manifest. Yet, even with all these sacrifices, the story reminds viewers that the puzzle is not complete. Each act of giving up life or opportunity contributes to a larger, unfinished plan, one that continues to unfold in the present with Luffy, his crew, and those connected to the ancient legacies. The Great Pirate Era, the Road to Laughtale, and the cycle of the D clan all exist within a continuum where every choice, every loss, and every act of courage matters. The narrative positions sacrifice not as a mere plot device, but as a force that ensures the eventual alignment of history, destiny, and freedom. Without these acts, the world would remain unprepared, the knowledge of the Void Century would vanish, and the truth of Joy Boy's era might remain obscured forever. Sacrifice is thus the engine of historical momentum, the quiet force ensuring that ideals endure across generations. And yet, as the story repeatedly hints, there remains a final piece of the puzzle, a revelation or event that will bring together all the threads of history, will, and destiny. The sacrifices of the past have set the stage, but the ultimate resolution, The unveiling of Laugh-Tale's secrets and the confrontation with the forces that have shaped history for centuries are still waiting, hidden just beyond the horizon. The nature of One Piece ensures that the most profound mysteries are never simple, and Laugh-Tale, the fabled final island, embodies this complexity perfectly. Unlike ordinary locations that can be reached through conventional navigation or sheer determination, Laugh-Tale exists within a framework of cosmic timing, historical alignment, and spiritual resonance. Its appearance is not fixed. It moves with the currents of the world, both literally and metaphorically, and it seems to emerge only when the forces of destiny and history converge in the proper way. The Dragon Stream, the immense ocean current that circles the planet over 2,000 years, carries islands and energies along paths invisible to ordinary maps, creating a flow that shapes the journey of those who would seek the final treasure. This current is not simply water in motion. It is a conveyor of fate, ensuring that only those whose timing, will, and lineage are attuned to the flow of history can hope to reach Laugh-Tale. In this sense, the island is not a static prize, but a manifestation of the world's readiness, appearing when the planetary currents, the alignment of celestial bodies, and the actions of key individuals synchronize perfectly. Integral to this alignment are the sovereigns, figures whose lives and wills are entwined with the fate of the world. Roger reached Laugh-Tale at a time that was too early, as if the world itself had not yet matured for the revelation it held. Roger's knowledge, courage, and mastery of Haki and the voice of all things allowed him to witness the truths hidden there. Yet he could not reshape history single-handedly because the world was not yet prepared. Now, centuries later, the prophecy appears to be unfolding once more, with Luffy and possibly other key figures representing the continuation of that legacy. These sovereigns are not merely powerful individuals. They are focal points of historical momentum, catalysts whose decisions, actions, and connections to the will of D determine whether the world is ready to face the truth. Their journeys, intersecting with the paths of allies, enemies, and ancient legacies, form the human dimension of the alignment that summons Laugh-Tale to visibility. Only when these threads converge, courage, sacrifice, and the resonance of the past with the present, does the island reveal itself fully. The 4 Road Poneglyphs further reinforce the idea that Laugh-Tale's accessibility is governed by precise, multi-layered conditions. These stones are far more than simple maps. They encode not only spatial coordinates, but temporal and celestial information, functioning as keys that unlock access only when certain alignments are met. Navigation toward Laugh-Tale is therefore a combination of understanding the world's currents, the positions of stars and moons, and the historical cycle of human and spiritual events. It is a journey that tests intelligence, perception, and the capacity to interpret the hidden signals left by those who came before. The Straw Hats, through their encounters with the Grand Line, the New World, and the ancient Poneglyphs, are gradually tuning themselves to these signals, unwittingly preparing for the moment when the island will reappear. Every whale that guides them, every clash with enemies, and every step toward understanding the Void Century contributes to this synchronization, as though the world itself conspires to ensure that when Laugh-Tale surfaces, it is met by those capable of comprehending and honoring the legacy it holds. Ultimately, Laugh-Tale is more than a destination. It is the manifestation of a world ready to reveal its secrets, to reconcile the past with the present, and to allow the ideals of freedom, sacrifice, and inherited will to come to fruition. The Straw Hats are not merely chasing a treasure. They are sailing toward a moment in history when the world itself has matured to a point of revelation. Every element, from the Dragon Stream and the Sovereigns to the Road Poneglyphs and the cycles of the Void Century, converges to create a single point in time and space where the island appears. It is a culmination of centuries of struggle, planning, and the enduring thread of the will of D. The mysteries, sacrifices, and legacies that have defined the journey of the pirate era are all converging toward this moment, suggesting that when Laugh-Tale finally emerges, it will not only reward those who reach it, but also transform the world itself. And as the Straw Hats sail forward, their path is guided not merely by ambition or curiosity, but by the invisible alignment of history, fate, and destiny. A moment when the island that waits for the world's readiness will finally step out from the currents of myth into reality. The laughter of Roger at Laugh-Tale is one of the most enigmatic moments in One Piece, a reaction that has echoed across centuries and fueled countless theories. Unlike the typical anticipation of a treasure hunter discovering gold or jewels, Roger's laughter was profound, layered with emotion, and full of meaning. It was a laugh born not out of triumph in material wealth, but out of the beauty and irony of the truth he had uncovered. After decades of navigating the Grand Line, confronting the unknown and deciphering the secrets of the world, Roger finally reached a place where history, destiny, and human ambition intersected perfectly. He saw the culmination of centuries of struggle, the remnants of the Void Century, and the intricate connections between the ancient kingdoms, the D-Clan, and the cycles of fate that had shaped the world. This was a revelation that went far beyond coins, jewels, or fame. It was the story of humanity itself, written into stone, currents, and the very tides of the planet. His laughter, then, was a recognition of the complexity and the tragic beauty of the world, a moment where history and humor intertwined in a way that only someone who understood the weight of the past could truly appreciate. Roger's journey to Laugh-Tale revealed that the true treasure of the world was not a hoard of gold or a pile of jewels, but the hidden history of the planet, the erased century, the rise and fall of kingdoms, and the legacies that were passed down through sacrifice and willpower. Every piece of knowledge, every poneglyph, and every legend of Joy Boy or Odin formed part of a larger narrative about freedom, ambition, and the enduring nature of human will. Roger, as the only man who had circumnavigated the world and returned with this knowledge, understood that the world's story was far richer than any material treasure could convey. It was ironic, too, because he had laughed at the absurdity of all those chasing gold without realizing the significance of the history they were entangled in. The treasure was a mirror, reflecting both the aspirations and follies of humanity, the repeated cycles of rise, fall, and legacy that had defined the world for centuries. And yet, this revelation was bittersweet. Roger knew that the world was not yet ready to fully understand the truth. His laughter was tinged with sorrow, because he grasped the scale of what was hidden and understood that his own role would end before the world could fully grasp it. Now, centuries later, the stage is set for the next inheritors of this legacy. Luffy and the Straw Hats are not merely adventurers. They are participants in a story that has been centuries in the making, guided by currents, prophecies, and the threads of the will of D. The island that Roger reached, Laugh Tale, may have been moving across the world for 800 years, aligning with cycles, celestial patterns, and the presence of key figures capable of interpreting its secrets. Luffy's journey parallels Roger's, but with a crucial difference. He may arrive at a moment when the world is ready, when the knowledge of the Void Century, the legacies of Joy Boy, and the truths hidden in the Road Poneglyphs can be understood and acted upon. If Roger laughed because he saw the story, Luffy may complete it by realizing Joy Boy's promise, a promise of freedom, unity, and the revelation of truths that have been suppressed for centuries. In this sense, One Piece is not merely a treasure hunt. It is the unfolding of history itself, with each adventure, battle, and discovery leading the Straw Hats closer to completing a narrative that began long before any of them were born. And the ultimate question lingers. If Laugh Tale has been moving, hidden by currents, cycles, and time for 800 years, what happens when it finally stops? What happens when the Straw Hats catch it? When the culmination of history, sacrifice, and destiny converges in a single moment? The answer could reshape the entire world, unveiling secrets that challenge power, liberate suppressed knowledge, and redefine the meaning of freedom in the One Piece universe. The laughter of Roger was the beginning of this story, a recognition of truth and irony. But the Straw Hats' journey may be its resolution, a moment where the past, present, and future collide. Every sacrifice, every act of courage, every whisper of the will of D has led to this point, aligning the stars, the currents, and the cycles so that the world is ready to witness the final revelation. And when that moment comes, the treasure of Laugh Tale, its story, its truths, and the promise of Joy Boy will finally be realized. The question remains, not as a cliffhanger, but as an invitation to imagine the consequences. The world has waited 800 years. The currents have carried the island, and the Straw Hats are sailing toward it. What will they find? And how will history change when they finally reach the place where the truth has been hidden all along?